what makes you think you're the right person for the job against the backdrop of the last year?
You know, I've been with Arm almost 9 years and been in the semiconductor industry longer than I would like to admit. We've only had 3 CEOs before me at Arm, and I'm honored and humbled to be the 4th. I've been running core Arm, since SoftBank bought us about 4 or 5 years ago, which is our IPG business, the Intellectual Property Products Group. And I've been driving the strategy around growth, the new markets around hyperscales and automotive. I've got big shoes to fill from Simon, Warren, and Robin, but at the same time, I feel like the years I've been at Arm and also outside the industry makes me really a good choice.
Well, as you said, you've been in the industry a long time. Do you have any regrets about not getting to work with Jensen again? Personally disappointed, but also excited going forward. Jensen's a fantastic leader. I was at NVIDIA for 8 years prior to Arm, learned so much from Jensen, and I thought the combination would have been fantastic between the two companies. At the same time, thrilled and excited about our future at Arm. Arm is doing great. We've had a lot of growth in the last number of years, again, in the key markets I've mentioned, and very, very excited about the future. I'm really, really excited. What challenges does not getting that deal done pose for the company now?
I think, honestly, we're just glad to have the uncertainty over. It was a really long regulatory process. The deal was announced back in September. Here it is February. The two parties got together and decided, it was the best thing mutually to stop the process. So for us, I think, candidly, the uncertainty that we were under, having that behind us is really terrific. I think going forward, we've just got a lot of reasons for optimism.
Well, and clearly some of your customers didn't want you to be acquired. I remember I spoke with Qualcomm CEO Cristiano Amon. He said Arm is great as an independent company. What kind of work needs to be done there to rebuild trust with all of these big other players while the industry is in crisis?
The industry is always moving. I've been in semiconductors my whole life. It's never been more tumultuous in terms of all the things going on. We've had a lot of conversations with partners just in the last 10 days or so since I took over. Reassuring partners, talking to them about the future going forward. I think we're in great shape. Some of the companies that you mentioned in the beginning that we worked with for almost the entire history of the company, 30 plus years. We have long, long relationships. So the conversations have gone really well, and people are excited about what independent Arm can do.
We're seeing a lot of turnover across the employment industry in general. People are reflecting, they're changing, they're moving jobs, and they are in tech as well. Given the uncertainty that you were dealing with at Arm internally, has turnover increased in that time? And how do you plan to get that under control, if so?
We've had attrition just like every company has during this period, and the uncertainty for our employees has just not helped. We're so excited now to be able to talk to employees. In fact, I had an all-hands this morning with the entire company, and this was the first all-hands we've done in 18 to 20 months that we could actually talk about a future, being independent, giving them some hope about certainty going forward. So that's the single biggest thing, Emily, is giving our employees certainty.
So that's the pitch to employees. What's the pitch to public market investors?
Not really talking about that yet. Masa came out last week and said we're intending to go public by the end of 2023. I'll stick to Masa's comments at this point in time.
NVIDIA earnings just came out. We were watching the top line there. The stock's unchanged after hours. But, what do the numbers there tell you about what's happening in the broader industry, and how do they reflect what's happening in the broader industry as you all manage these supply chain issues?
The supply, again, industry my entire career, we've always had ups and downs in semis. This one's felt a little different because when you layer on top of it the pandemic, supply line shortages all over the place, and then on top of it the increased digitization that has gone in our lives, it's sort of the perfect storm for a number of different things in terms of demand. Arm, I think as you know, we sit a little bit one bit outside the supply chain. We actually don't build chips. We license to companies that build them. So we're not immediately impacted, but certainly we see the impacts of it. I think those problems will get solved. They always tend to in our industry, but I think we're going to be in some bumpy rides for a while.
Well, NVIDIA's results were underwhelming, and I wonder how much not getting the deal done hurts them. Do you see that?
I can't comment on that. It's kind of now that we're on two separate vectors. I can't really comment on what impacted that. So not much more I can say.
All right. So talk to us about Arm's future. How do you switch back that mindset to getting back into these quarterly reports and knowing that matters?
Yeah, that's going to be a new transition, new set of muscles for us to go off and flex. As part of the NVIDIA acquisition, we had to do a lot of things around public company readiness, being ready for SOX compliance. We've been doing a bunch of that work already in terms of the internal plumbing. Getting back into a rhythm in terms of quarterly reporting and such, that'll be a new thing for us going forward. My partner in crime, Inder Singh, our CFO, he has years and years of public company experience. Going to be relying upon him quite heavily. So we're excited.
What do you think is going to happen with supply? When does the pain ease? And then after the pain eases, are we feeling a glut? Is there oversupply? I think for the rest of this year, I think it's still going to be bumpy. I would guess sometime in 2023 it gets a little bit better. It's always a bit of feast or famine in the semiconductor industry. What's a little different though this time is that the leading edge fabs, the people who can build 3 nanometer and below, there's not many players who can do that anymore. There's TSMC, there's Samsung, and then there's Intel. That's a little different than it was before, just relative to partners who can invest. So it's really hard to say, Emily, in terms of where things are going in terms of the future. I think we're going to be in a situation where there'll be some boom and bust, but at the same time, I think the advanced technology is still going to be hard for people to get their hands on.
So when you say you expect some easing in 2023, what parts of the industry do you think will feel the relief first? What parts will take longer to recover? Like, is it cars? Is it smart refrigerators? You know?
I think it's hard to say because if you look at all these devices, refrigerators, cars, a car alone has over 30 ARM CPUs, but there's a lot of other components such as power amplifiers, diodes, batteries. There are so many different things that can sort of tip the balance. So it just takes one component to be short for the whole supply chain and the automobile, for example, to be impacted. So I don't think we know exactly. You know, we're into some new ground, particularly automotive, for example, that have not been industries that have had lots of electronics inside the cars. That's an industry that has been all around just-in-time delivery that's going to need to learn some new habits relative to the model going forward.
So how do you want ARM to innovate? What's the roadmap for the next couple of years?
We're so excited. We're really all about compute, we're all about performance, and then everything around the software ecosystem. I think one of the best secrets about ARM that people don't know is that we're the world's most popular instruction set architecture, which is basically the language that people program on. 50 million apps, 10 million developers, a huge amount of people who develop on ARM. And we're going to be in areas around the cloud, networking, IoT, and automotive. There's really isn't a place that we can touch.